Welcome back to another episode. Today, we are joined by my new friend, Coach Cam Cameron. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Brad. Appreciate you having me. Looking forward to it.
All right, so I'm going to do something that we haven't done yet before. Is I'm actually going to read your bio because I think the listeners really need to hear the depth and the level in the path that your career is going. So I appreciate you sending me this, but this is Cam Cameron bio. So Cam Cameron is a strategic business leader, National Football League consultant, and real estate entrepreneur. For more than 3 decades, he's served in a variety of capacities as an NFL and NCAA head coach and assistant, including head coach with the Miami Dolphins, and for those here in Indiana University, and an offensive coordinator with the San Diego Chargers, Baltimore Ravens, and LSU. Quarterbacks coach with the Redskins, the former Redskins, and quarterback receivers coach at University of Michigan, where you did begin your career with the legendary coach Bo Schembechler. During his various high-level coaching stops, Cameron tutored NFL Hall of Fame running back LaDainian Tomlinson, Heisman Trophy winner Desmond Howard, College Football Hall of Fame nominee Antoine Randall L., and pros including Drew Brees, Phillip Rivers, Joe Flacco, Odell Beckham, Jarvis Landry, and future Hall of Fame tight end Antonio Gates. Cameron earned a business degree from Indiana University where he played, get this, he played both football and basketball, and the latter for legendary coach Bob Knight. He and his wife Missy are parents of 4 children and reside in Pinehurst, North Carolina, which I'm sure you're playing a little golf, hopefully, in Pinehurst. Coach, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. That sounds like a guy who's been around. Sounds like an old guy, actually.
Yeah. That's called wisdom, in my opinion. So I want to make sure the listeners hear something. This is not necessarily a sports podcast, okay? And a lot of our guests so far have some connection to sports. My story is I grew up in the locker room. My dad always taught me there's more to life than basketball, but through basketball, you can learn many important lessons about life. And everything that I know in growing our real estate business has come from being in a locker room, being on a team, understanding leadership, accountability, hard work, dedication, all those things. And so I have a large network of coaches in my life. And I just want to bring those coaches to the forefront. And today I want to hear your story, and I want you to share with others how sports and how coaching can impact their own business. There may be accountants on here. There may be painters, plumbers, salespeople, teachers, and there's so many lessons that can be learned through the lens of sports. And so what better way than to have somebody with a decorated career like yourself, Coach? So let's get to know Coach Cameron a little bit. Tell us about your story, where you're from, and how you got to where you're at today.
Well, when you and I first talked about me being on this show, it was exciting because getting to know your dad down here, who I'm impressed with the way he runs his business. I'm also impressed with his golf game, just so you know.
A lot of golf.
He and I won a match not too long ago together. And then the Indiana connection that we all have, and the basketball connection. Just a lot of cool things that connected us. But it all started for me. I'm originally from North Carolina. But when people ask my wife, Missy, and I, where are you from? We say Indiana. She's from Bloomington. My formative years, I grew up in Terre Haute, and Terre Haute had a huge impact on me. But originally, I was being raised by my mom as a single parent. Me and my sister, there were the 3 of us. And I was in Durham, North Carolina. And for several years, I was a decent little athlete. I was in love with North Carolina basketball. Dean Smith, George Karl was my childhood idol, if you will, before I moved to Indiana, and just tried to emulate everything that he did. So that had a big impact on me. Had a lot of great coaches initially. As a young kid, Coach Armstrong, I'll give you an example, elementary school at Holt Elementary. We won the state championship here when I was 12 years old, which was kind of cool. But my life really was I was a really good student early. Then as a single parent, I became a little loose as a kid. Academics, my mom worked, left in the morning at 6, got home at 6. And academics were a little bit of a struggle for me. And then she started dating a football coach. And that's my stepfather, a guy named Tom Hart. He's still alive. He'll be 96 this year, lives here in Pinehurst. That's why we're here, to take care of him and my mom. My mom's struggling a little bit, but he's doing great. Sure enough, she's dating. They're dating for a year, and he gets the head coaching job. He was currently the running back coach at the Naval Academy. He had been the head coach at Duke, Cornell, coached at West Point, a lot of places, but he gets the job at Indiana State. And they tell us that, tell me and my sister that we're going to move to Terre Haute. I'd never been out of the state yet, other than go to Myrtle Beach in South Carolina. So that was a little bit of a shocker. But I was fired up because I knew it was a basketball state. I love basketball. So fast forward, we moved to Terre Haute. There's the three of us living in a house. They weren't married yet, so we weren't. He wasn't living in the house. But I was like you, Brad. I started getting around the locker room. I was working in the equipment room. I was sitting in meetings. I was around coaches all day. And my stepdad was a phenomenal football coach, and very disciplined. And just as things work out, sometimes that's exactly what I needed in my life at 12 years old. Some discipline. And I think this is probably where the two major changes happened to me in Indiana. Number one, he said to me, he says, "So you like sports, huh?" And I said, "Yeah, absolutely." And he says, "Well, just so you know, you'll be getting B's or better in school, or there'll be no sports." Wow. He told me that once, and I never called him on it. I was fortunate to up my game and got B's or better all through junior high and high school and into college. And so that helped. And then at the same time, I got a knock on the door by three gentlemen that said they had heard we'd just moved to town, and they had a fund there in Terre Haute where they would sponsor kids to go to summer camps. And I was sponsored to go to an FCA camp. Well, FCA is Fellowship of Christian Athletes. I didn't know what FCA stood for. I didn't remember that's what they said it stood for when they told me, but I went to the camp anyway because my mom couldn't afford to send me to a camp. So I go to in Rockville, Indiana. I go to the FCA camp when I was 12 years old, right before I went into seventh grade. And went seventh grade, eighth grade, ninth grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, senior in high school, went 6 years, and then came back as an athlete at Indiana as a counselor. But back to that first year is when I accepted Christ into my life. And that you combine the discipline of a dad in the home, just kind of that family component, if you will, that obviously not everyone gets. I would say fortunate to not have it, and then to have it.
Sure.
My biological dad was around until I was in second grade, but you never forget when that split happens and he tells you he's leaving, and then that absent thing happens to you, and then all of a sudden now you got a dad with real high standards, a disciplinarian. One thing he taught me early on, it's better to be an hour early than a minute late. So just got me in the habit of showing up early to this day. I've just always got to the ballpark early, always get to an office meeting early. I always fly somewhere, usually if the timing's right, get there early. It's better to be an hour early than a minute late, because obviously a minute late speaks to everybody and how important you feel that event is. And he proved it to me one day. I asked him, "Hey, can I head in with you tomorrow to the office?" And he says, "Well, I'm leaving at 5:00. He would always leave to go to the office around 5:00. And I went into the driveway at 5:01 or 2, and he was gone. And I went into my mom, woke her up. I said, he left. And she didn't have a whole lot to say. Well, I got on my bike, and from our house on the south side up to the Indiana State football offices is about, I'm going to say, 8 or 10 miles. Just got on my bike about 5:15, rode my bike up to the office. And I think, this is when my parents had just gotten married, I think that sent a message to him as well that, hey, I might be listening. And so growing up in the locker room was huge.
I
got
want
the
to
chance.
I want to interrupt for a second because I know we're going to get to the IU here and your playing career and whatnot because
Yep.
that's interesting. But there's a couple things that you've said already. One, you didn't play the victim. Your family dynamics. With your biological father and moving states, and you didn't play the victim there. The other thing I heard was you were willing to be coached, right? You were willing to be coached in your faith. You were willing to be coached in your discipline. I mean, what advice would you give somebody who maybe doesn't have that type of a figure in their life that is coaching them up on a regular basis? And on a lot of times when circumstances do not go in our favor, it's easy to play the victim. So what advice would you have for people that hey, stop playing the victim? Let's tie your boots and let's go.
Yeah, I think I have some readings I do in the mornings. I don't do it. I don't make it. I mean, there's days where something happens I don't read it, but it's. I think number one, you got to humble yourself and you got to look inward first. Don't beat yourself up. But I remember one of those FCA camps, Kent Benson, the great
Mm-hmm.
IU center on all those teams in the '70s and a great NBA player. Just talked about looking in the mirror, look the man in the mirror, look into the mirror first, and I try to do that without beating. Okay, something's not going right here. All right, so what would I do different? What could I have done different? For example, my dad and my grandfather, who I never met, my grandfather never met, were both died of alcoholism. They were alcoholics. Well, that impacted my life in a huge positive way. I said, well, okay, there's one thing I'm not going to do. And instead of falling into that trap and just perpetuating that. So I just, am I wired that way? Is that something that God has just blessed me with? Is it something that I had great coaches that always pushed me toward the team? I was always the point guard, just like, what that is. People ask me, well, how'd you feel scoring 38 against Terre Haute North at the arena at Indiana State? And I said, well, scoring is great. If this, I'm sure you were the same way. I know your dad. If you need us to score, we'll light you up. But the enjoyment of the assist, I've always felt was better than scoring. Right? I learned that from George Karl. That's why North Carolina always points. And it's a tradition. They point to the guy that passed them the ball because of the assist. So to me, I've had so many people help me and frame my thinking. I mean, I don't know, 10 shows I could thank everybody that's helped me think that way. So if someone's
Mm-hmm.
out there listening and something's happened your way, take a peek at it. What's happened? How can you improve it? What do you want to do moving forward? And start your day every day. Sometimes, I tell you, we went 1-15 in Miami. And I can tell you this, when I was head coach at Miami, and it'd been a while since I'd even been on a losing team. And I got up every morning and just asked for strength. Ask God for strength. Give me knowledge, give me wisdom. Come on, help me. Give me whatever it takes just to get through this day one at a time. And sometimes it's a matter of learning, taking it one day at a time, and try not to get too far ahead of yourself. That's just kind of how I live my life.
So I'll pivot a little bit here. So there may be Dolphin fans listening, there may be Wolverine fans listening, Hoosiers, San Diego Chargers. There's a lot of sports fans out there, and this podcast is going to air as we head into the NFL season. So there's a lot of football fans out there. But I asked my kids a question. It's what should I ask the coach? What do you want to know from the coach? And I've got a couple questions, and one of them kind of talks about your time with Miami. It says, how do you bounce back from a losing streak mentally and physically? If there's it's funny, a lot of their friends have subscribed to the podcast, and there's a lot of young student athletes listening here. And I think what's important is to be able to talk to all different types of people. I might have a losing streak in my real estate business. If I'm a painter and I've given a bunch of quotes and nobody's hiring me, I may have a losing streak. The difference is, coach, when you're on a losing streak, the paper reports it. The news reports it. Nobody comes to me, and I've said this on another podcast before. There's not a news station here filming my Wednesday and then reports that I missed so many calls on a Thursday. And so, how do you bounce back from a losing streak mentally and physically?
Well, I think it started off with my stepfather whenever I would complain. I would just grew up in a home where we didn't talk negative about others. My mother always said, and she was raised this way here in North Carolina, if you can't say something nice about somebody, don't say anything at all. That was one thing that I always said. Number two, my dad said, okay, let's think about somebody else instead of how tough you have it. And he could always mention, no matter how tough you think you have it, there's always somebody that has it worth. So how are you going to move forward? And when I was in Miami, I think, again, I'm coming from San Diego. We had just gone 14-2. All right. Now we can't win a game, and we're battling our tails off to try to win a game. And then it came, I think, to my perspective, and my perspective is through my life experience and then learning from other people's life experiences. Right. One thing that has helped me, I'm a 2-time cancer survivor. One was melanoma. Bo Schembechler saved my life, seen it on my back one day in the locker room, and then prostate cancer. And stats on prostate cancer, the one that I had, weren't good. And then I also have a son who's went to West Point and is currently deployed in the Army. And you go 1-15 is 1-15. It's tough. No one wants to go through it. It's tough on the fan base. It's a lot tougher on my family than it really was on me. That was probably the hard part. But you got to know what's life-threatening and what isn't. All right, cancer's life-threatening. 1-15 isn't unless you let it become life-threatening. I have seen some guys take a loss or something that's not life-threatening and making it life-threatening, and it really just derails them. So to me, I said, okay, what can I learn from that experience? How can I keep my head up and be the leader of my family? And the friends and the mentors and everybody that I'm associated with, how can I give them something positive to look at through what was really a very hard time, but in the big scheme of things, not as big as maybe people would think. So that's my approach. That's just my perspective. But like you're saying, I guess, try to learn from other people's perspective. I know I have.
What'd you take away? What area did you grow in when you went 1-15? Like, was your faith resurrected a little bit? Got a little closer to the Lord? Was your leadership got better? Did you improve or change some of your habits? Like, what did you? Because here's the thing. I mean, I went through your bio here. I went through your resume, and people are probably like, "Oh, Coach Cameron, like he's successful NFL coach. He has no problems. Like, there's no challenges in his life right now." And I think we learn the most from the challenges, and the difficult part is I think we fail to pay attention to them. Asking yourself the question, what am I supposed to learn in this season of my life? And I guess my question to you is, where did you grow the most in that season?
Well, it's just, I don't know if there's so many areas I grew in, number one, but two, it's just a great reminder of the man in the mirror, or they looked in the mirror. All right. You can't lie to that person. Mm-hmm. And I had to look myself in the mirror every day and say, am I giving this football team? Am I giving our front office? Am I giving our scouts? Am I giving our fan base? Am I giving them everything I've got? And I can honestly say I did that. If there's one thing that I would say to the Miami fan base, and I think a lot of them know that, maybe a lot of them don't. I gave you every single thing I had, and it didn't work out. Obviously we were planning for the future, and you got to be careful in the NFL. If you plan too far ahead, even the next year, because they can get you in 1 year, and that's happened multiple times. So let's fast forward. This is the irony of it. So we win one home game at Miami that year. That was our only win. We beat the Baltimore Ravens. So I get hired by the Baltimore Ravens. I'm driving. I got a U-Haul behind my truck. I'm headed back to meet my kids in California, and I get a call from John Harbaugh that he's interviewing for the job in Baltimore. I won't give you the whole story. It's a pretty good one, but I just said, hey, I'd love to be your coordinator. He had coached for me at Indiana. John Harbaugh got his first major job at Indiana. And so he had coached for me. And I said, yeah, I'd love to be your coordinator. So let them know in the interview process that I'm your guy. So I let my family know that. Sure enough, he gets the job, meaning I get the job. And the next year we go. I look on the schedule. We're at Miami. We go down there, and they had a nice little team. We had a lot of we had a young team at 1-15. But a lot of those, that second year is a big year in the NFL, and they had made some nice acquisitions. So we thumped them pretty good, and so that was the first thing. But then first round of the playoffs, we play them again in Miami, and we beat them again. But point is, you say, okay, how do you keep moving forward? What did you learn? You just keep putting your best foot forward. Keep putting your best foot forward. Be honest with yourself. Don't trick yourself. Look in the mirror. Make sure you are putting your best foot forward. So when I go to Baltimore, I won more games in Miami Stadium, 2, than I did when I was a head coach. When I was
for
in
a full
Miami
season,
in 8 home games.
in a full season.
So you never know how it's going to play out. So you just keep a positive attitude. Just keep trusting the Lord. Proverbs 3, 5, and 6 is kind of my thing. I think, trusting the Lord and that is something that has really just set the table for me on a day-to-day basis. And that trust is so, so important.
I usually remember
And in yourself.
I remember the first day of like our training camp, we show up and, to practice. And I actually, talk to my kids and my team about this now is, our coaching staff always used to say, and this is the same thing as man in the mirrors, guys, you can cheat the coaches. You can cheat your teammates.
Right.
You can cheat your family, but the one person you'll never be able to cheat is yourself. So if you're staying up late, your body's going to show it. You're going to have injuries. You're not going to be able to compete. So in our sales team, it's how many calls did you make last week? Okay, I talked to 15 of my clients. Okay, great. How about the next week? I talked to another 15. Cool. Where's your business? Like, why aren't people calling you back? So at some point, you're right. You got to look that man in the mirror.
Hey, can I add one thing to that? Real quick?
Yeah, go for it.
I think how you talk to yourself is super important. Don't
Agreed.
kid yourself. But positive affirmations. Drew Brees.
Let's talk Drew Brees here.
Pardon me?
Yeah, let's talk Drew Brees here a little bit. I have a question for you.
He was the all-time positive talker to his teammates, but also to himself, and then challenge himself. Come on, Drew. Drew, you're better than that. There you go, Drew. I mean, it was just, and I talk to myself a lot. People look at me, who are you talking to? I'm talking to myself.
Yeah.
And I talk a lot in my sleep. My wife tells me I talk in my sleep all the time.
And I'm sure it's all positive.
And yeah, early on, I just heard that from somewhere. I had coaches that were positive coaches. And then I don't know who exactly it was, but I just always try to positive on the golf course. Now I've learned how to, when do I need to challenge myself? Do it out loud, do it verbally to yourself on the golf course. It's been great for me. So yeah, you're not going to fool yourself, but whatever you do, you don't have to beat yourself up. Just be honest with yourself and challenge yourself versus beat yourself up. And know that no one's perfect and learn from those mistakes. I would say that is huge. It's been huge for me. And I try to talk to my kids about that as well. And I really talk to them about it versus kind of model it. I think modeling it, is what we're all saying. And
I've got a high school daughter who plays golf, and when we're golfing together, one of the things that I'm modeling for her is, no matter how, I'm going to hit the ball way left or way right. When I step up to the ball and when we find it eventually, I always say to myself, this is my favorite shot.
There you go.
This is my favorite shot. This may be a low 4-iron draw around this tree, but this is my favorite shot. And so now
by the way, how did her event in Franklin go?
It's fantastic. We're halfway through the season. They won. There's 22 teams there, and their high school got first place out of all of them. So it's not the big one. It's not the big one. I said hello to Ted. He told me to tell you hi. But
yeah, well, as you know, Ted Bishop was in our wedding.
Yeah,
and is a great friend. And he's a great story because we don't need to go down that rabbit hole, obviously, but he started a little course in Linton, Indiana. And I played in probably 100 plus celebrity golf outings to raise money for charities. By far, the best one I've ever been involved with was Ted Bishop's tournament in Linton, Indiana. He's no longer there, obviously. He's up in Franklin. But Ted Bishop it's a great guy for any of you viewers. You want to have a great round of golf and meet a great guy, go to Franklin, Indiana, the Legends.
The Legends. Yeah, we're just there last weekend. So let's get into mastering the fundamentals. So as a coach and you're a consultant with the NFL right now, let's talk about a little bit down this road of mastering the fundamentals. What are the fundamentals to coaching? You know, I mean, when you're sharing this, we're talking to leaders out there. We're talking to salespeople. We're talking to teachers. Whoever you are a leader. You lead somebody. You know, even if you have an hourly job, you know, there's customers, there's clients that are calling in. You lead people. What are the fundamentals that we need to master as it relates to coaching?
Well, I think first and foremost, and I read a book, and I always say, a guy said this to me the other day. Now I'm saying it. You'll never confuse reading something or studying something with doing something. You know, I mean, you don't, just because you read something, you know, that doesn't, you've got to really kind of know it before I think you can pass it along. But I did read a book that my dad had on his shelf called You Win with People. It was written by Woody Hayes. Woody Hayes, a famous football coach from Ohio State. Well, then obviously I go to Michigan. And so they're rivals, and never got to coach against Coach Hayes, but followed him as a kid. All my dad's side of the family's from Ohio. And did I know what that meant when I read it, you know, in high school? Probably not. But without question, any successes that I've been an opportunity to be a part of in my, you know, kind of my post-college days, and is the people. And when I've been in a position to either influence the hiring of someone or to just hire someone, you've got to get the right people, the right person, the right fit, and those people come in every ethnicity, every way possible. But you got to get good people around you, and it doesn't take but one person in any organization to derail the whole thing. Mm-hmm. It's the darndest thing. You hear that story when you're a young entrepreneur or young in business. You hear, yeah, how's one person going to infect an entire organization? Trust me, it does. So I would just say, first and foremost, the fundamentals are, you know, you win with the right people working together. And then I come from the team concept, which has challenges in the sports world. But I have a son who, my oldest son's in business and was more on the speech debate side, moved away from sports to get into some other things. And he goes, Dad, you got to realize in business, it's not like walking into an NFL complex where everybody's pretty much on the same page and it's a team, the team. I believe in it. I get it. But in business, he goes, most businesses, you know, they don't allow a Bible study. You know, most businesses don't talk about the team. They push individuals. They want people climbing over each other and I've just never been around a successful business that people didn't work together. But I hear that goes on a lot out there, but I just don't stick around those kind of places. So
it sounds like business is more of like fantasy football where everybody's out for themselves. But I want to pick up a theme here. So if you're listening right now, this is the theme I'm picking up in your life, Coach. You've got a decorated resume. It would be easy for you to say, I did that. I did this. You know, this is me. My identity is wrapped into my titles. My identity is wrapped into all this. And you've used a couple words, you know, humility is one. You know, you talk about you need other people. You know, the fundamentals of being a great coach is you need other people to win. And so I don't believe success happens in isolation. You know, and to your point, you know, it takes a team, it takes the individual effort. Another question that my kids had is, how hard is it managing so many different personalities? If really other people is the fundamental to coaching, how hard is it to manage these other personalities?
I don't think it's hard at all. But my life experience lends itself to be able to deal with multiple personalities, multiple ethnicities, recruiting that takes you into every city. I've been easily in every major city in the country multiple times in every area of those cities. And then out in Iowa, in the Midwest, I mean, you name it. So you get to know all the differences there are throughout our country and how you deal with all different types of people. And I'd studied management in college, and then I realized, for me, the word management meant when I'm managing, I'm basically sitting behind my desk by myself early in the morning, putting together the daily schedule for the organization, say a football program. Okay, we're meeting at such and such. All right, you have breakfast, lunch, you got different things you manage, but leading, I've always said, I try to lead players and get to know players, and management. I take management almost out of the human component, because when I found myself managing people, I didn't feel the connection. So maybe this is just me. This is for
Sure.
me. But I have watched organizations where, this cat's managing us. But he doesn't know us, and he might walk by you in the hallway, and not even see you. And so I view people that don't want to connect, but yet are responsible for you, as probably people managers. The people that I've worked for, or the way I wanted to be in that position, was a leader, and someone where we're sharing ideas, where I'm kind of this lifelong learner, as I'm sure you figured out.
You're a student of the game.
Yeah, and I figured, okay, if I hire somebody, I want to hire somebody that can do what we need them to do, has room to grow, but someone I can learn from as the leader. And I think that makes it so much more fun. And one of the things I always said, Brad, and I know everyone can't do this, everyone's circumstance does not allow this, but there'll be people listening where it does. I've always said that I never wanted to take a job where I felt like, if one of my non-negotiables, and that's another thing, I have a little list of non-negotiables that I will never compromise, that I couldn't walk out the door and just say thank you and move on, and just say, that's not an area that I really need to be involved in. And again, I was fortunate to be able to bring good people into my organizations, or to be inserted into great organizations where I never truly felt that way, because I never felt like I had to compromise any of my non-negotiables. But I do think that's a big part of how you look at things in the business world, is, okay, what are your non-negotiables? Cheat, lie, steal. Those are biblical, right? My son at the West Point, duty, honor, courage, different things. There's just, and I was fortunate, and my kids have said to me, here's one thing my kids have said back, because you never know when it's going to really sink in, right? And what they hear when they're young, and all of a sudden they get in their, all four of my kids are in their 20s. And my daughter, her senior presentation last year at USC, said, it took me, she said, when she was putting together her experience there over 4 years, it came down a lot to my non-negotiables. And he goes, that's something my dad had talked about at one time. And she, a lot of her success, she said, was not, compromising her non-negotiables through her 4 years at USC. So I think
that's fantastic.
It's all intertwined. There's no, you can read a lot in books, you can learn a lot from books, but you can't become a leader through a book, right?
Mm-hmm.
Matt Burke, if you look up a guy named Matt Burke, was our center in Baltimore, great guy, ran for lieutenant governor last year in Minnesota. I love what he would always say when he would speak to people. He said, because he's been Harvard guy, 15-year NFL career. He says, people always ask me, what's the secret? What's the secret? What's the secret? And he stops and he goes, okay, here's the secret. And he pauses. And he goes, the secret is there is no secret. It comes down to hard work. How important is it to you? And he comes in and there's no way around hard work. There's no way around it. And that's another example that I think that just, again, blends into everything we're saying.
Well, and there's so many times where, I'm a constant learner. I grow constantly is one of our core values, and I go to seminars and conferences, and I just try to absorb as much as I can. And one of my mentors said one time is education without implementation is purely entertainment.
There you go. That's a
and and
great.
and that's what it is. And so, I mean, if you're listening and you're somebody who grows constantly, like I know there's people out there, because I'm one of them. How many books are you buying and they sit on the shelf, right? And it's like, oh, I need to learn this, I need to learn this. But it goes back to, I said something that you said, non-negotiables. We have our core values. Our core
Right.
values in our business is serve others, earn everything, grow constantly, win together, and always represent. And
Love
if you don't have those, I'm meeting with realtors in our marketplace now that are kind of lost, and they don't have that direction. And I think, you're the work that you do in your life, you need to have that direction. So the first thing I would do is stop right now. If you don't have core values in your life, for your family or for your business, like that's how we make decisions. That's how we make big decisions. That's how we make small decisions. And it's not just, an acronym. It's not just a plaque we put in the office. We try to live by them. I think you
it.
talked a lot about, living by these principles. It's not just, something on a t-shirt. And so I want to talk about falling in love with practice, because you've been involved with so many great professionals. You've been involved in the coaching industry for so long. Who is somebody who's a professional, college or pro, that had the best work ethic, that had the best practice, day in and day out? Because we talk about there's no secret, right? It's hard work.
Right. Oh, there's yeah, no, there is no secret. Man, I've had so many. All right. So Drew Brees goes right to the top of the list, but also come to Antoine Randall, who was my quarterback. You mentioned him earlier at Indiana, who's now the wide receiver coach for the Detroit Lions. Um, Never had a bad day.
Mm-hmm.
Never, always as a leader, as a player. Um, and he truly, if you came to one of our practices in Indiana and watched Antoine Randall, you'd swear it was a game. It looked no different than the game. Drew Brees, if you watched our practice, he wanted to win every rep. Phillip Rivers, win every rep. LaDainian Tomlinson, all right. I'll tell people, okay, who's the all-time leading scorer in the history of the National Football League? Well, some people know that it's LaDainian Tomlinson. But here's what they don't know. He ran every time. And I had him for 5 years. He never missed a practice in 5 years. So there tells you, hey, the number one ability you got to have is availability.
Show up.
All right. You got to be there. You got to show up. You got to be there. But then, okay, now once you're there, all right, now what's your productivity going to be? He, ask anybody that was there, he ran to the end zone every single play. It got to the point where it slowed down our practices, but he would run. It was an 80-yard. If we spotted the ball, we were working a drill going 80 yards. He was going to run 80 yards for a touchdown. So we started moving the ball closer to the end zone, so we didn't have to wait so long for him to come back or sub somebody in there. But he refused not to score. And it's, to me, that's a perfect example of a guy. He didn't just magically, it wasn't a fluke that he's the all-time leading scorer. He made practice a game. Michael Jordan, there's a quote by Michael Jordan. I probably won't get it exactly, but he basically said, you need to practice like you play, or otherwise all you're doing is practicing getting worse.
Mm.
And so you got to practice to get better.
Yeah.
You got to practice to get better, because if you're just putting in the time, you are really practicing to get worse. And that was actually, I had that Michael Jordan quote in every NFL playbook that we ever put together. And so just getting guys to buy into practice. Now you got to be smart in your practice. And I think analytics and data have really today helped us all understand, without rest and recovery, you can't put your best foot forward in practice. And you can over practice.
Yeah.
I learned that early in my career at Michigan. We had a terrible bowl record early on because we played about 25 bowl games before we got to the bowl game. We were done. We were spent. So, you've got to, I don't know if you're going to be successful pacing yourself, but everything's got to be game like. And if it's not game like, then tone it down and go do something else in an area that's less strenuous. And you've got to really come up with a system that allows you to practice at a high level, recover at a high level, and then perform when the lights come on. And when I say the lights come on, that could be a listing presentation.
Mm-hmm.
That could be an interview. Don't go into an interview worn out from, spending the 48 hours up with no sleep. That ain't smart. So you got to be smart about what you do. But whatever you do, pacing yourself, there's a fine line between pacing yourself and really getting after it, as you say, ripping and running.
Well, and we talk about the rest run cycle. Every business has some seasonality to it, right? If I'm a landscaper, I know what my seasonality is. If I,
Great
right,
point.
and
Yeah.
so the seasonality of your business is you've got to have the rest run built into there. In real estate, we do have times where the volume's a little higher, and we could get into a whole nother episode about this because I know you and Missy have a great real estate practice. So for all the realtors listening to this all across the country that are following us, Cam and Missy have a fantastic real estate business in Pinehurst, North Carolina. So if you have a golfer that is looking to relocate, these are the people to talk to. So shameless plug there for your business. But let's get into. I literally, Coach, I could talk to you all day about this stuff because I nerd out on the analytics and the data and how that how we use that in our business. You talked a lot about how you got to show up in the rest run cycle. The fact that LaDainian, he was living out his affirmations. Every time I touch the ball, I'm going to the end zone. Like what if we as a business showed up every single day? Every day I'm going to congratulate somebody on making a sale on my team, whether they did or not. I'm getting in the practice of letting them know that I believe in them. I think as leaders, we can do that. I'm going to go back to something else you said too, is, you talked about leadership versus management. One of the things that I believe is there's nouns and verbs. Management is a noun, right? I mean, that's a title. Leadership is a verb. That's all action.
I love it. I love it.
And so there's been so many great nuggets, and this would be a 2-hour podcast selfishly if I just wanted to hear all your stories, and I'm sure we could do that offline. But we talked about mastering the fundamentals, and that's all about making sure you got the right people, treating them well, and knowing that success does not happen in isolation. We talked about falling in love with practice. You gave us some great examples of people that were phenomenal at practice. If your practice isn't game speed, the game should be easier than practice, right? So like that listing presentation, it's going to be hard sitting in front of a client if you haven't prepared well. So all of that, no matter what business you're in, no matter what you do, that preparation creates separation. My kids are probably sick of me saying that, but preparation creates separation. And then I want to hear, what does winning in the game of life look like for you? At this stage, what is winning in the game of life, Coach?
Well, I'm fortunate to have married the love of my life, and Missy. We celebrated 38 years. We dated 4 years prior to getting married, so we've been together. So I think she was 19, I was 20, almost 21, 22. So to me, it obviously, I spoke about my faith earlier, which is blended in all of this. I used to kind of stack faith, family, football. I would kind of do it vertically, but I've learned, for me, it's more horizontal, and it's all tied together like this. And so beyond my faith is my marriage, and I've got the greatest wife for me, obviously. And I was excited. I knew I'd probably retire from football full time about 55. I learned watching Tony Dungy walk away and some other guys, and okay, if I left at 55, what really does that? Well, okay, what are my non-negotiables? Okay, my faith. I'm not compromising my faith. I'm not compromising my family. And I thought beyond 55, where my kids were now in junior high and high school, if I stayed in coaching, I had zero chance to be the father I wanted to be. And that's a non-negotiable for me. I want to be the best father I could be. So, okay. And so I got fired up, and I joined Missy in real estate, which now you get to work with your wife, your best friend, and learn from her. And she's, what I like to do, she doesn't. What she likes to do, I don't. So it works perfect. We went and interviewed multiple couples that had successful real estate businesses together. And that's another story. And really didn't get a ton of great answers, to be honest with you, because I'm not sure any of them were happy. So we thought, you know what, we better figure out our own way so that we can enjoy this thing. So then that goes to my kids, my 4 kids. I wanted to be available for all my kids as much as I could, and having the ability and having control of my own time. Though I did go back to college for 4 years because I wanted to get them back into the college environment. What college environment is great for your kids if you're a coach. The NFL for kids, it's more an adult game. There's no real band at halftime. There's not, there's nobody their age, so to speak. So I made a great commitment and went to LSU for that for my family, and it worked out great. It was awesome. So success with my marriage, with my faith, my marriage, my kids, and then to have control of my own time and be able to go to a men's fellowship breakfast, to be able to travel, to see my kids, to do the things I want to do charity-wise. I get a chance to volunteer for the U.S. Open coming here in 2024. I've never done that before. I've never been a marshal at a golf event. I'm fired up because the golf charities around here are off the charts. So just being able to do those things and really make my health a priority. In coaching, you think you do, but you don't. You're working 18 hours a day. Come on, maybe 20. I mean, you love adrenaline. Adrenaline, you're just running on adrenaline. And I realized I couldn't do that forever. So just being able to take care of my health, spend time with my wife, my family, and be able to help others do things like this to kind of help you further your mission, if you will. And then anybody that I might be able to help, we're just happy to do that. And again, just remember, if somehow we connect, I'm going to learn more from you probably than you'll ever learn from me. That'd be my guess.
That's fantastic. Well, that embodies a student of the game, and that's one of the main reasons I want to get you on here, share your story. And we heard so much, but I think if the listeners can hear this thing, in business a lot of times, and in your personal life a lot of times, we don't know what winning looks like. And if you're somebody right now that doesn't know what winning looks like, let's figure that out. Let's do some soul searching and figure that out, because what I heard you say, winning in life for you is living by your non-negotiables, living by your core values. And what a fantastic answer. What a beautiful answer. It has to take somebody with experience and wisdom, who's lived a little, who's had some life experiences, knock you down, and also, being on the pedestal as well. And what a fantastic answer. Before we wrap up, the last thing I ask all of our guests here is, my kids are always saying, give them their flowers, give them their accolades. Who is somebody in your life, because this podcast is all about relationships win. Who is somebody in your life that you want to send some virtual flowers to? Who's somebody that has helped you get to where you are today? And I know with your resume, you have so many people, but if there's one or two that really just stand out that helped you get here, who's somebody you want to send some flowers to?
Well, first and foremost is my mom. And, I look back, my sister passed away a year ago last month. And so now it's just me and my mom that are really left. And you as you get a chance to reflect over time, you go, okay, we were in a little bitty apartment on the north side of Durham, a little area called Old Farm, and a 2-bedroom apartment. It was me, my mom, and my sister. And I told you, my mom, you don't have something good to say about somebody, don't say anything at all. The first time a cuss word came out of my mouth when I was about 7, I didn't even know what I said, but I said shit. I didn't get to the T, and her hand hit me across the face. You're not, it just, she early on, and maybe that's frowned upon today, I don't know. But she just taught me so much about how to treat other people. And then she modeled it. And so I go back. So why do I think the way I think initially? What is in my heart? Not just in my mind, but what's in my heart? My heart is just to help people and to be kind to people. Yeah, I have my moments. I mean, I have a switch that'll flip. Most good coaches do. But I would just throw flowers to my mom, and then, but a mom can't do it alone. And to my stepfather, who's again turns 96, we moved here for that reason first and foremost. The golf's a nice bonus. I love to fish. There's great ponds and the lakes around here, but it's to take care of my mom and my dad. And I would love to throw flowers 1,000 different directions, and honestly I could. The list is so long, but my mom, who's in a nursing home, we had to move her in there a little over a year ago, and see what she's going through, and then the loyalty of my dad, who sees her 7 days a week, and the love that he's shown her, throwing flowers out to them, is where it would all start for me.
That's awesome. Well, it sounds like it's been modeled for you. And your life isn't a straight line. Your life, it wasn't a straight line of successes, and there was a lot of challenges early. And I think, what I heard, and hopefully the listeners heard, is, with as much success as you've had in your life, as much as earthly successes you've had in your life, you weren't a victim. You wanted to learn.
Oh.
You wanted to keep growing. And so I appreciate you. I appreciate you sharing. This is going to bless a lot of people today, Coach. I can't wait to just chop it up with you offline here and get to know you a little better. But again, Cam Cameron, what a fantastic human being. Thank you for being on here today. You are a student of the game, and I know you blessed a lot of people. So thank you for being a guest today.
Well, thanks, Brad. Appreciate you having me. God bless you. A great job. Love what you're doing, and look forward to meeting some people that are out there listening.
Awesome. Well, if you like this show, follow us on Instagram _Brad Noll _ and we just put a lot of content out that has everything to do with mastering the fundamentals, falling in love with practice, and then just figuring out how to win in life, because we're all doing this life together. So let's not do it alone. Thanks for joining us today, Coach, and everybody, make it a great day, and so many nuggets today. Thanks a lot.